Superman dies in Lois Lane's arms, bloodied and broken. Wolverine screams as Magneto rips the adamantium from his bones. Rorschach stands in the snow, unmasked, refusing to compromise. These moments made comic readers for life. Fans remember exactly where they were when they read them because they mattered. Now, name a single comic book in the last 10 years that made you feel that way. You can't, because comics stopped building moments and started producing IP. And that's why the last decade already feels like it's destined to be forgotten. If you felt something rotten in comics, stick around, because this video explains it all. Quick thanks to the 616 Comics for sponsoring today's video. They're the #1 producer retailer in the entire industry. Use code ThinkingCritical, all caps, no spaces, at checkout for 10% off their exclusive variants on their website or their app. Superheroes remain relevant after 80 years because they deliver eternal truths. Superman embodies hope. Spider-Man teaches responsibility. Batman stands for justice. Their stories are timeless because what they represent always matters. In the 80s, Alan Moore and Frank Miller started deconstructing those ideals, and it was groundbreaking. Watchmen and The Dark Knight Returns challenged readers to think what superheroes could represent, but 4 decades later, writers are still swinging the exact same wrecking ball. Long after the veneer of innovation wore off, characters like the Flash and Iron Man get torn down again and again. Even when there's nothing really left to break, writers like Tom King and Jason Aaron churn out endless cynicism, pretending it's still cutting edge, but never realize you have to rebuild the hero better for deconstruction to actually work. Here's the truth. They made true heroism taboo. Trauma replaces hope. Social justice erases real justice. Selfishness tramples sacrifice. They say this is comics evolving, but it's cultural vandalism. Comics abandon universal truths just to drag Superman down to our level. But if timeless truth is gone, what replaced it? The answers in how the classics hit like wrecking balls, while today's stories barely leave a mark. There was a time when a comic book story shook the foundation so hard the impact echoed for generations. The night Gwen Stacy died shattered Spider-Man's innocence, and Peter Parker has carried that guilt ever since. Batman Year One wasn't just an origin, it rewired the Dark Knight's mythos, shaping his path for 40 years and counting. Daredevil Born Again broke Matt Murdock to the core, then rebuilt him into someone even more heroic. These weren't just stories, they were cultural earthquakes. Scars and truths the greatest superheroes still carry today. The reasons we know comic books are the greatest storytelling medium in the world. But modern comics don't even pretend they want to leave that kind of mark. Today, history gets treated like an inconvenience to be rewritten. Marvel drags Gwen Stacy's corpse back through endless clones just to sell covers. DC slaps proven gimmicks over soulless shells. Mr. Terrific Year One isn't breaking new ground, it's treading 40-year-old water. And how can they shake a foundation that no longer exists? The original Daredevil series ran nearly 400 issues from 1964 to 1998. In just the last decade, it's been rebooted 4 times, each run obsessed with rehashing Born Again instead of daring to create the next great story. It's artistic grave robbing, digging up classics, puppeting their corpses, and praying nostalgia hides the stench. Pale imitations of what was great decades ago, never creating the next story that will be required reading for the next 20 years. I mean, seriously, what was the last great superhero story that wasn't just a sequel or a retelling of something written decades ago? Maybe by now, they've run out of Daredevil stories worth telling. That's possible, but the truth may be uglier. Comics haven't created a hero of note in decades. The industry used to listen to fans when it came to the next big star. It took 5 years for Marvel to finally get behind Gambit. He wasn't just a cool design, he had mystery baked into him, chemistry with Rogue, and storylines in X-Men that kept teasing layers fans wanted more of. Fan favorites used to spring out of nowhere. Lobo crawled out of a forgotten corner of the DC cosmos, so outrageous and brutal that readers turned him into a cult icon DC couldn't ignore. These characters survived trial by fire. Fans judged them, tested them, and ultimately embraced them. Readers decided who mattered. Now the big two have declared themselves as the tastemakers. They decide who fans like. They've called Captain Marvel a fan favorite for over a decade, despite Carol Danvers burning through more relaunches than most readers can even count, as if gaslighting makes it true. Today, they fast-track hollow mascots to check boxes instead of letting them earn their place. Riri Williams was declared Iron Man's heir before fans even met her. Naomi even landed a TV deal before she even had an identity. It's corporate marketing cosplay, editorial telling fans what they have to like instead of listening. And here's the tragedy. It's not just characters. The rot is baked into the way every big event gets made. They used to tell stories so massive they couldn't be contained in a single book. Blockbuster movies in comic form that you couldn't miss. Crisis on Infinite Earths rewrote DC's universe for a year straight, and the echoes still ripple 4 decades later. Civil War hit so hard, turning friends into enemies over principles, that Iron Man never really recovered. These events mattered because not only were they bangers, the aftermath endured. Today's events are manufactured for the trash bin. The X-Men Hellfire Gala started as a single issue of Marauders. Marvel bloated it into a line-wide costume party just to plug a publishing gap. DC's Night Terrors shut down their entire line only 2 months into Dawn of DC. And when it ended, nothing was resolved. No fallout, no lasting impact, just pointless slop interrupting everything before it even had a chance to get going. Modern events are designed to collapse with zero consequences, so the next game changer can be marketed as essential. There is no blockbuster storytelling anymore, only quarterly sales mandates, a conveyor belt of promises, resets, and disappointment. And if that wasn't bad enough, writers have slowed pacing to the point where even the biggest stories read like a slog. The classics respected your time. Days of Future Past delivered one of the greatest X-Men sagas in just 2 issues. Kraven's Last Hunt plunged Spider-Man into his darkest trial in only 6. Whatever Happened to the Man of Tomorrow gave Superman his perfect farewell in just 2. Every page mattered. Every panel carried weight. Every line of dialogue pushed the story forward. Today, everyone is just writing for the trade. Modern comics stall like padded Netflix shows. Al Ewing's Venom dragged a single thread across 36 issues, stretching all the way into writing for the omnibus territory. Brian Michael Bendis' event Leviathan padded 2 issues worth of story into 6, with each installment opening with 20 pages of recap before delivering 1 scrap of plot on the final page. Comics are no longer engineered to make every page matter. They're stretched to fill trade paperback spines on shelves. And pacing might be the biggest casualty of all, because when the rhythm dies, so does the urge to ever read that comic book again. That's why the last decade is the most forgettable era in the history of comic books. No new classics, no new enduring heroes, no new star writers, nothing to inspire the next generation. Just a storytelling medium experiencing an identity crisis and a pipeline of IP destined to be forgotten. They've erased the timeless themes that made superheroes cultural pillars. Comics stopped trying to create heroes that inspire. They turned blockbuster storytelling into sales gimmicks, and they don't even pretend like they give a damn anymore. We've witnessed creative suicide in slow motion, the destruction of cultural touchstones for quarterly earnings. And here's the truth. Mythology only survives when it's timeless, when it leaves something behind worth remembering. And the comics industry chose cynicism, endless gimmicks, and death by apathy instead. If you want to see how this same decay is hollowing out American pop culture, watch my video, American Pop Culture is Dying, Comics Prove It. The video is right here. There's a link in the video description. This is a bigger picture play on that. I do appreciate the time, and remember to keep thinking critical.